Okay, I think we are 1 minute into the meeting, so it's time for us to get started. So hello everybody, a very good evening and a warm welcome to the NHRD Thought Leadership Meet. My name is Mercy Vinny and I am the HR business partner at Odessa, and I am also an NHRD volunteer. It's great to be with you all today and talk about a very interesting topic, OKRs. So before I get started, I have some quick announcements about NHRD. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so very quick announcements and a very simple one, people. We invite you to join the NHRD tribe. It's a great community that's here, and I can tell you from my own very personal experience that NHRD is a brilliant community. It provides a lot of opportunities for you to try out your skills, and also a lot of people who help you in your learning and in your growth. So I would really encourage you to give yourself a chance to experience that by joining the community. Just some very quick information about the NHRD Bangalore chapter. We have around 2,500 members, and some of our events that we conduct regularly are thought leadership meets, learning programs. We have our flagship event that happens, which is HR Showcase, and so many more webinars, tweet chats, and much more. So we invite you to participate in some of these events, and you can follow us on various social media channels. I'm just going to skip past this slide because it's again, I'm hoping most of you all are familiar with NHRD, so all of this information should be readily available and just at the back of your minds is what I'm assuming. If not, please follow us on our social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, website, and also on your YouTube channel. So you'll get to know all about our work here and every event that's in pipeline. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, stop sharing my screen. And once again, welcome all of you all to the Thought Leadership Meet today. We're going to be having a very strategic discussion on the prominent goal setting framework, OKRs. And I'm as much as excited as each one of you for hearing our panel members talk about it. And we are joined by our star-studded panel of influential leaders, Kevin, Vidya, and Naveen. So I'd like to introduce a little more about them. So I'm going to go ahead and read out their bio. So first up on our panel is Vidya Santhanam. Vidya is the co-founder and CEO of Abcs of Okrs. Vidya leads growth and customer success for Fitbots and is passionate about building a SaaS business. Also a certified OKR coach, Vidya has coached over 400 teams on OKRs and certified 100 as part of the OKR certification program in collaboration with OKRs Training US. Vidya brings this experience in building Fitbots along with her co-founder and CTO, Kashi. So to know more about Vidya's work and the organization, you can visit their website, fitbots.com. And about Kevin, Kevin is the author and consultant. Kevin Baum is a formal government executive who pivoted out of government to pursue his passion, helping organizations large and small get laser focused on what matters most and how to measure it. Since 2003, Kevin has worked with hundreds of organizations across the world as a strategy execution and performance management coach. So to follow Kevin's work and to know more about his work, you can take a look at his website, okrstraining.com. And the last up on our panel is Mr. Naveen Tom Alex. Naveen is the Associate Director HR in Subex. Naveen has varied experiences across business partnering, driving transformations and change initiatives, conceptualizing and executing L&D strategy. Through the experiences of playing different roles, he has developed expertise in consulting, design, and delivery. Currently, he leads the HRBP OD learning and onboarding team in Subex. Beyond work, Naveen spends time with youngsters to help them realize their potential through a community he's created called the Teens Mad. So to know more about Naveen, connect with him. You can visit his LinkedIn page and talk to him anytime that you need. So that's about our panelists. And before I go ahead and ask my first question, I'd like to make a quick announcement. I'm pretty sure all of you will have some question or the other in order to ask our panelists. So please go ahead and type that on our chat window that you can see. So I'll get them answered towards the end of the session by our panelists. So with that, let's begin with our conversation. Vidya, Naveen, are you able to see me?
Yes, Mercy, we can see you.
And you're able to hear me clearly, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So let's get started in that case. Just like the flight takes off from the ground to the sky, I thought we could start off with a very basic question about brief on OKRs. So Vidya, can you please give us a very quick introduction about OKRs? Pallavi, I think Vidya is saying she's unable to unmute. Avinash, can you unmute Vidya, please?
Sure, just a minute.
Hi, Mercy. I can unmute myself, and I think my video has still been disabled, but that's okay. Hi, everyone. Great to be part of this panel discussion and share some practitioner experience with each of you. I think Mercy's question was very pointed on, can you tell me more about OKRs, or can you tell us more about OKRs? So I'll try and probably explain it in about 3 or 4 points on what exactly are OKRs. There's a lot of content out there on the internet, and most of you would have already read about OKRs. So it's very popularly known as a strategy execution framework, which is being increasingly adopted by organizations worldwide. But from a practitioner lens, there are 3 points which differentiates OKRs or which stands out. The first and foremost is that it's a shift from me to we. So in traditional goal practices, you would have probably visualized a team member and a manager sitting across the table and discussing goals. But the magic of OKRs is teams coming together to set high quality metrics which move the needle. So that's the first shift. The second interesting way to think about OKRs is that it's not a catch-it-all. So it's very, very specific metrics which you're cherry picking, which leads to business velocity. And the third way to look at OKRs is that it's definitely not about set and forget. It's about building that muscle of cadence week on week, month on month, quarter on quarter, so that eyes are sharply focused on outcome-based metrics. So these are the 3 points that I would like to call out while defining OKRs. Mercy, back to you, and would love to get Kevin's thoughts on this, because both Kevin and I have coached many teams together, and he of course is a great expert on OKRs as well. I think Mercy, you're on mute.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Vidya. Kevin, you can definitely add to what Vidya has already talked about OKRs. But in addition to that, I thought the good follow-up for it would be the key facets of OKRs that differentiate it from the other traditional goal-setting frameworks. So could you please highlight some of the differentiators of OKRs from the other goal-setting models, please? Kevin? Avinash, I think Kevin, Naveen, and Vidya, all 3 of them must be able to get onto video and also unmute themselves.
Mercy, just hold on a minute. He's doing that, okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Mercy?
Yes,
yes,
All
yes,
right.
Kevin.
what would a webinar be like without technical difficulties? So
Yeah.
do apologize. So I think the host has put everybody to mute, and when that happens, it happens to the panelists as well. So just to make sure that Vidya and Naveen and I can all unmute in the future, that would be best. Thanks, Pallavi. So the question, Mercy, first of all, I think that Vidya did an outstanding job of defining objectives and key results. It truly is strategy execution. But the question that you asked me is, what is kind of the differentiator between OKRs and other goal setting frameworks? And I would have to say that the primary differentiator is that through OKR, it's not just goal setting, it's goal setting with a strategic intent. So the superpowers of OKR, if you will, is focus, alignment, engagement, and stretch. But that alignment is crucial because when we build out OKR, you start with a conversation around where does the company see itself at the end of the year? And then you build broadly worded objectives and key results that represent where we want to be at the end of 2021. There's your strategy. And then you take that to the organization and you invite them into the conversation. You literally let them write themselves into the strategic story of the organization. And then they tell you what they think is the most important 2 or 3 quarterly objectives that they have to do in the next 90 days that's going to ladder into or contribute to a higher level key result. In other words, the entire organization is rowing in the same direction. We're all pointed at the same North Star. Everybody has to build OKR that has strategic intent. So the primary differentiator from previous goal setting, approaches or frameworks is that this is truly aligning the entire organization so that we're all focusing on what is most important, so that we're all laddering into the results that the organization wants to achieve, assuming, by the way, that the organization knows what those results are. So I'd say one differentiator is alignment. Another one is OKR is very agile. So it's not that top-down hierarchical strategic push. Here's where we want to go as an organization, taught to you by the executive team. The leadership builds the strategic orientation, kind of the strategic framework, but then we go to the organization, we say, from where you sit, what do you think is the most important 1 or 2, 3 things you've got to be working on? Something new, something different, a variation from what you've done in the past, something transformational that's going to push the organization in the direction that we want it to go. So we invite the organization into the conversation and let them build the OKR that they think is most important to them. So it's a very agile. Also, I think another differentiator to OKR is this truly is about measuring outcomes. So there's a lot of goal setting frameworks out there that, like, for example, the entrepreneurial operating system that comes from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. I don't know if y'all have read that, but I would recommend that book. But in that, they talk about quarterly RUCs, and those are quarterly goals. And that's important. But what they're missing is key results. In other words, how do you know whether or not you've accomplished that goal? How do you define and measure success? So in OKR, it is about objectives, which is your goal, but then it's also about those key results. How do you measure success? So we're going to begin to tease data out of the organization that is pointed directly to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And what you'll discover once you go down the OKR path is that we humans aren't wired very well when it comes to results and outcomes. We're wired real well when it comes to outputs. I can count tasks and activities, right? Every person on this call has sitting on the desk in front of them a to-do list, I guarantee you. My question would be, if every single one of those to-dos on that list is now done, what outcome did you just influence? What key result did you just push the needle on? And so in OKR, we measure that so that we're teasing out important information data from the organization that is aligned directly to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So I would say that those are 3 of the primary differentiators between OKR and other goal setting frameworks. I could probably go on for a full hour on that one question alone. So.
Yes, but those were great pointers, Kevin. Thank you very much. You spoke about agile, outcome, and alignment. I think some of those are very important differentiators and facets of OKR. So thanks, Kevin, for that. So the next question is up for Naveen. So Naveen, we understand that you've implemented OKRs in your current organization. So you have your very own experience. So what we want to understand from you is, Naveen, what was your approach to OKRs? So in OKRs, what we hear and understand is that every organization have to take their own approach, something that suits their organization, their business. So what we'd like to understand from you is, what was your approach to OKRs? Can you share a couple of best practices that you've incorporated into your framework?
Yeah, thanks, Mercy. So I think I'll just build up on what Kevin and Vidya spoke, right? So I think the starting part to building an OKR within the organization is, I think, all the steps that Kevin just spoke about, right? Maybe I'll just summarize it and then, maybe take a very specific example of Subex and, what did we do there? So I think Kevin spoke about why OKRs, right? So today, many of, the teams, there's a book called, Measure What Matters, right? So, people read that book, and then they just try to go and implement that into the organization, right? But many of times, without having that understanding of why do we need an OKR for the organization, we don't get that strategic perspective to it, right? So for Subex, when we started and when we asked that question, our CEO was the sponsor for this. I think it was something that he has driven from his own will, saying that this is something that we need to really do. So I think there were two main key parameters that we wanted to look at, right? So one was we wanted to build high performance teams, right? So I think that was one of the key areas of why we wanted to do OKRs. And the second part is, I think Kevin touched upon alignment, right? So alignment of how do we translate that strategy to execution, and how do we get the entire organization to align to it? So I think these were the two main objectives that we had, that why do we need OKRs? Once I think that was done, and as the senior leadership team kind of figured that out, actually the entire go-to market for OKRs was done by our CEO. I think as we speak more, I think the importance of sponsorship is so important for OKRs. I think many of times we think that goal setting, the performance management, all of that is remaining with the HR team. But for OKRs, if you look at it, if it remains with HR, it is all the more difficult to drive this within the organization, right? So I think what's worked for us for executing this, getting that buying and to implement, I think we're 3 quarters into it, right? And I think what's worked is that we had this sponsorship from the CEO, and he's driving it. So because of that, right, we got the entire buy-in. And then what we did was, keeping these two objectives in mind, we looked at what is it that we want to now achieve in the next 3 years, and we broke that down into an annual goal, saying that what is it that we want to achieve this year, and we use the balanced scorecard, right? So those 4 areas under balanced scorecard is what we're looking at, and underneath that, right, I mean, we have corporate goals which are coming in, and then as Kevin rightly said, that we have all the teams, right, all the organizational capability now aligning to it. I think that's also something that is very important, that many of times goals are cascaded. And when the cascading happens, many of the individuals, right, who are getting those goals have no idea, right, how is it that it is all leading up to that bigger objective or the bigger outcomes that we're looking out for. So I think the important thing is that how the entire organization and all the capabilities that it has starts aligning to these corporate goals. And then from there, it comes into the team level. And at the team level, they again, align into whatever the business units have, set as their objectives and KRs which are there. We consciously, made a decision that we should not take it down to the individual levels, because OKRs in its nature is, as I think Kevin and Vidya mentioned, that it is about alignment. It is about, how do we bring, 5 people together for a common purpose. So the moment you go into the individual level, that aspect is missing, right? Because it's all at the individual contribution level. So we have made it, purposely that it is not going down into the individual level, which is there. So that is the approach that we have taken. And we started very nimble, right? So we did not go and invest in a tool in the beginning. I think we started with an Excel. But an Excel which is able to do this alignment to some fashion, to some way. So we had the internal expertise of building that Excel in that particular way, but we started very nimble. And then once we started seeing that this is working, it is better than what it was. The 2 objectives that we're talking about, the alignment is happening, and we see that there's a lot more accountability. The teams are energized. Then we started thinking about the tool. So I think you don't have to go big bang with this. I think we can start very nimble, as a step to it, and then once it kind of becomes the muscle, right? As Vidya said, I think that's when maybe we can look at investing more into it. Now, what are some of the learnings from this, right? So I think I just told you it's 3 quarters in, and one of the beautiful things about OKRs is at the end of every quarter there is a reflection across the organization, right? So the idea is that first it starts within the team. right? The team comes back and says that, okay, we had these objectives, these KRs, which we had to achieve. Now, did we achieve it? If it did, what worked? If it did not achieve, what did not work, right? And actually this gets completely, aligned up to the top. And then, there is a conversation at that level also to, call it out. And then we kind of publish that, what is it, the learnings that, each of the teams have, right? So that is, something, which is a good practice that, I see as working. And the second thing which I've seen is that the defining of OKRs. So when we started at the team level, each individual, started aligning to that business unit level, right? So when I say, for example, the HR as a team that I represent also had OKRs. So there we have the, the learning team, the OD learning and OD team, let's say the HR business partner team. So what we started doing was that each of these teams, right, started aligning to it. And what we soon realized was, again, right, we are creating silos, within the OKR that is there. So what we did was we together sat and understood, now what is it that we as a team need to do or together can do? Because again, these are all different capabilities that is coming in, within the HR team itself, right? So we actually looked at that. And then, we had a common objective that, each of the teams did, and we started contributing to that. So I think when you define OKRs, at the first time, I think what we did was we all did siloed again there, but from the second time onwards, we got together as an HR team and we decided on, what is it that we can do together. So I think that is, one big learning that, come together, discuss, look at who can contribute to what, and then, try driving towards it. The second one is do what is in your control. So, we started picking up, certain things where we had a lot of dependencies on teams outside of, our teams. Because when we are in HR, right, we have the business leaders who are, always there with us, right? So we started seeing that it was becoming difficult, to drive things because it was not reflecting in theirs. So what we now started doing is when we create an objective, we go to the respective contributors, right, who can help us out. And we go and sit with them saying that, what, this is what we want to do. Are you interested? And many of times, right, they also came on board saying that, yes, I think this is also that what we should do. And sometimes that objective itself got redefined because now that business flavor is also coming in, right? And the KRs remains both the levels. I think today we keep saying, right, seat on the table is something that we keep talking about. Now, what beautifully is happening is that, you're able to see the business metric of how your effort is going to impact. And at the same time, right, from an HR team perspective also, right, that is happening. So I think do what's in your control. And when you see that there are certain elements of it where you need help from other parts of the organization, go there, collaborate, again, right, look at what is the possibility, create those objectives with them, the KRs, and then start driving it. So I think that was the second big, learning or, some things that we can follow, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so I think I'll end with those two.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Naveen. I think you touched upon the cross-team collaboration that OKRs enable organizations and the teams to do, right? That's a very interesting point. And something that's very unique I heard first time from you, Naveen, is about not introducing OKRs at an individual levels, or honestly. So that is something that I'm hearing for the first time. So I think that's brilliant. You touched upon sponsorship also. So, that gives a very good segue into my next question. And Vidya was also very passionate about that question. I remember, Vidya, you spoke a lot about sponsorship when we were connecting offline too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why is sponsorship important in OKRs, Vidya? Maybe you can talk about it and then we can pass it on to Kevin, and maybe Kevin also could add to that.
Yeah, thanks. And it's great to have the video on. If you look at OKRs, it's actually bringing change in our organizations. Many of our teams have been used to practices of the past. So when you institutionalize change, the starting point in organizational development, as you would have all seen, is to have a sponsor. CEOs in our experience have been the best sponsor. The reason being, you need somebody to lead from the front, to have passion and belief in what the teams are doing. So when you look at OKRs, if now you're moving from, let's say, whole laundry list of KPIs to say that, okay, just cherry pick metrics and focus sharply on it, you need the sponsor to come and say that, yes, these are the business metrics which are so important. The second and very important role of sponsors is to give budgets for an OKR exercise, because it takes time, it takes effort, especially in the first 90 days to set it all up. So it needs the budgets, the sponsorships to actually clear those roadblocks. And the third important role of a sponsor, why the sponsor's role is important, is the power of reviews. So when OKRs are made a part of leadership reviews is where the importance gets driven in an organization. So I would probably lead it to these 3 points and request Kevin to add on from his experience.
Yeah, well said, Vidya. And I can tell you folks with authority, because we've worked with hundreds of organizations around the world, that having chief executive support and sponsorship to an OKR effort is a crucial success factor. In fact, before we will even begin working with an organization on implementing OKR, 3 things have to happen. First thing is we have to talk to that CEO. We want to make sure that that CEO is 100% behind it, not just behind it, but the driving force behind it. And we'll ask that CEO 2 questions. Why OKR and why now? Because this is very important. The answer can't be because Google's doing it and we thought that was cool and sexy. The answer can't be because, we read John Doerr's book and thought, well, this sounds like a good idea, right? Because OKR, as you heard, I think both Naveen and Vidya say, this really represents culture change. And folks, culture change is difficult. And so messaging is very important when we start an OKR journey. And we will literally help that chief executive to script out what his or her message is. And that message needs to speak to the pain. It needs to speak directly to what it is that we're struggling with as an organization. Is it alignment? Is it focus? Is it engagement? Is it we got this strategy, but we're having a hard time executing around it? What is it? And so we help that chief executive to script out exactly what that script is going to be. And the third thing that we do is we make sure that somebody is assigned as the champion. I can tell you again with 100% authority of every client that I've worked with that has experienced success with OKR, they have somebody in the organization that is the heart and soul, kind of the go-to resource for that effort. And we call that the champion. This is the person that kind of marshals the effort along, keeps the energy going. And that CEO can't be the champion, right? So you've got to make sure that you've got the CEO support and buy-in, script the message, and then identify who's going to be the champion. By the way, Mercy, I don't know if I can share a screen, but I can share with the group here just very quickly a couple of examples of what CEOs have written in terms of messaging, just to kind of reinforce the importance of this. Can I grab the screen real quick? Do we have time for that?
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Avinash, is it enabled for Kevin?
Yeah, it should be. There'll be a share screen. Yeah.
Yes, awesome, thanks.
All right, look at this. So I know everybody can read. Just sit back and relax and let me read this to you. And as I read it, tell me what words jump out at you. So this is what one of our CEOs wrote to begin to socialize the message to the organization, why OKR and why now? This is what he wrote. He says, we believe in the power of OKRs to help us provide complete transparency and alignment across the organization toward a common goal of improving the lives of our customers. We expect to continually pursue high growth opportunities and will remain creative, entrepreneurial, and flexible to adapt our business in whatever direction that can accomplish our mission and vision. Now more than ever, as we rapidly grow platforms, strategies, and offices through a pandemic, no less, it is critical that we row in unison with a system that provides clarity and accountability for all levels within our company. We believe OKRs do that, and they will help us all advance exponentially as we continue to disrupt the marketplace. You notice I highlighted some words that are key. And so now this CEO has his script, and everywhere he goes, every presentation that we do, every reflection that Naveen talked about at the end of the quarter, every time we talk about OKR, even your intranet page, your kind of go-to resource for OKR, your organization is going to be touched by that message. This script is very, very important. I got several of these, hundreds of these I could share with you. I just want to share one more with you because I want you to know that each CEO is different. I'm not going to read all this to you. I just want to read to you what you see here in blue. Listen to what the CEO said to his organization. It says, we have been fortunate in 2020, whether it be a stroke of luck or some much deserved positive karma, our business has excelled in spite of unprecedented conditions. We can't take that for granted. Our responsibility is to get better, breathe a sigh of relief, and commit to taking control of our future because there will be more COVIDs and great companies don't rely on luck. Great companies adapt and improve during a crisis, and to do that require an operating framework that facilitates focusing on what matters most, blocking out all of the noise. That framework is something we have lacked. And then he goes right in and talks about OKR. So my point here, folks, is that sponsorship is beyond symbolism. It has to be messaged, and then that message needs to be socialized and reinforced throughout the entire organization so that we begin to create the the realization throughout the organization that this is real, this is happening, this is something that we are going to do, and this is going to be woven into the very fabric of our DNA. And that's how you succeed with OKR. So threw a lot at you there, but and I've got dozens of those scripts that I can share with you. I'd like to see what some CEOs have said. Did that help, Mercy?
Yes, definitely. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Those are great insights.
You bet.
Okay. So my next question is around growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So how do OKRs help you get into a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset? I'm opening this question to either of you. I'm okay if Vidya, Kevin, or even Naveen, any one of you could pick it up.
Mercy,
So-
go ahead, Naveen, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just add one point there. I think so. There are two types of OKRs, right? So one we call it as committed OKRs, and the other one is aspirational OKRs. So many of times the committed OKRs revolves around your KPIs or your KRAs which are set, and when that particular KRA metric is not going so well, you will look at how do we look at committed OKRs to get at the alignment that's required to get that metric better, right? So there, the growth mindset, yes, it might be there, but not to that extent, right? But I think when aspirational OKR comes is where I think the growth mindset really comes in. The way that I look at aspirational OKRs is you're building something for the future, right? It is something that it is not there today. And, when you are putting that objective, which is, stretched, sometimes you have to learn, sometimes you have to go out of your way, right? So I think OKRs helps you build the future, and especially, right, if it is aspirational OKR. So maybe that's one thing that I can add of how we look at growth mindset.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Naveen. Kevin, you wanted to say something?
Well, so Mercy, I was reading the chat box when you asked the question, so I was going to ask you to repeat the question. But when I heard Naveen talking, I realized that what you were asking about was the stretch component in OKR. Is that right?
Yes. So I was asking, how does OKRs help somebody get into a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset?
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you. Well, I thought Naveen answered that question. Excellent. The risk is inherent in the OKR framework. It's built into it because your OKR really should represent something new, something different, a variation from what you've done in the past that you think will help to take the organization to the next level. So I heard Naveen talk about committed versus stretch OKR. Let me share another perspective with you, because a lot of organizations will have committed and they will have stretch. I'm not a big fan of that because I think that all of your OKR should be stretch. If you've got an OKR that you're saying is committed, then what I'm going to push back and say is that's probably a business as usual OKR. So we'll have a conversation around that. But I like to say that all of your OKRs should make you nervous. It should make you, man, I'm scared. I'm going to need the wind to be at my back. I'm going to need things to go my way. I'm going to need cooperation, collaboration from some other teams, but I think I can do it. So we want your OKR to make you nervous. What we don't want is for them to freak you out, staring awake at night, staring at the ceiling, right? That's not what we're after. So all of your OKRs should have an element of stretch built into them. This is how you take that organization to the next level. So I do know that a lot of organizations out there will have what they call committed OKR, which means we're committed to accomplishing that 100%. I'm not really a big fan of that. When I work with clients, I tell them I want all of them to have an element of stretch and risk built into them. And we can talk more about that if you want. Any thoughts on that, Vidya?
Yeah, so going back to your point on the growth mindset, many a time when you look at the growth mindset, it's often linked to leadership, right? You think of leaders having a growth mindset. But what OKRs does is that it percolates this mindset across the organization. So let's say your next level teams, or it could be even, let's say, somebody right from campus who's becoming part of the OKR crafting process. So being a shift from me to we. So just visualize teams coming together and they're picking metrics which are going to contribute directly to company strategy. So the growth mindset starts getting built a lot deeper into the organization than just thinking about it in leadership level. So personally, while coaching teams, I've seen that shift happening in teams where they come up and say that, okay, if I need to move the needle on my corporate or company level OKR, these probably are the new metrics, something that I've never measured in the past, but I want to pick these up because I believe that they can bring that business velocity. So the conversations start changing and they get a sense of direction as well. So that to me is probably an example of a growth mindset, adding to what Naveen and Kevin mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much, Vidya. So my next question is around the relationship between OKRs and performance management. To be very honest, from my own personal experience, when we launched OKRs in our organization, one common question we had across from employees all around the departments was one thing: how does my OKR grading impact my performance rating? Do they have direct impact? So if I score less in one of my OKR, is that going to directly impact the performance rating that I'm going to get towards the end of the year? So that was one of the questions that we heard very frequently, and also it was something that was very common. So in your opinion, what should be the relationship between OKRs and performance management? Naveen, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So at Subex, we are at the performance management cycle. So I think you're asking this question at the right time. So we're doing this for the first time, where we have an OKR and we have annual goals. So the way that we're looking at this is, OKRs are vehicles to help you either achieve or overachieve your annual goals, right? So that's how we're positioning OKRs today within the organization, which means that it has no linkage to your rewards. And whenever we talk about performance management, what I've always noticed is it comes back to that last bit, right, which is the reward part. But if you look at the performance management as a process, it starts with goal setting, right, which is setting expectations. It talks about where I am, right, which is your continuous performance management that we talk about, which is the feedback, which is the check-ins, right? Then the aspect of looking at how do you enable me to perform better. So I think what OKR beautifully does is it touches upon each of those aspects. It gives you a great framework, a great methodology. But the last part of that performance management process, which is rewards, is something that we have de-linked with, right? So that's how we're looking at it. But one other beautiful thing that's coming in is like when we're looking at parameters like relationship, leadership, right? So we have our leadership performance expectations that we have set for the organization. And there are performance dimensions like leadership, management, relationship. So today what we're doing is, at least at a progress indicator level, right? We're looking at, hey, what is the kind of cross collaboration that you have done as a leader, right? And it has no linkage to rewards, but today, right, we're able to at least get some progress indicator to look at how that has happened. So I think those are some of the beautiful things that is happening because of this OKR methodology, which is there within. But yes, we should not link it with rewards, because it's an inverse relationship, right? Human behavior will go down. Yeah. So I think those are my views there.
Yes, absolutely. We looked at a similar kind of approach, in fact, Naveen, even at Odessa. We said that OKRs is a feeder into performance management. Like, we'll obviously look at your accomplishments when we evaluate your performance, but then it does not have a direct connection. So if you just score something here, it does not get into performance rating scores directly as such. We just said OKRs is a feeder, but when we talk about your performance, we're going to take a holistic approach. Your OKRs plus how you did it in the organization, plus maybe there was something that you did not put up on your OKRs, but then you did very well because of the business needed it at that point in time. So we just take the holistic approach when we talk about an individual's performance or an employee's performance, but we, as much as possible, just decouple both of these programs. So that's worked perfectly for us, and I think it's a best practice, right?
Yeah. So Mercy, I think I'm actually very curiously waiting to see ratings of individuals who have done very well in OKRs, right? I wanted to see, is there a correlation there? If they're able to overachieve their OKRs, is the ratings going up? So that's something that I'm curiously waiting for as part of the cycle. I think that's something that I'm waiting for. Let's see how it goes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naveen. All right. So making the shift into common challenges with OKRs. So obviously OKR framework is also not out of challenges completely. So every organization that implements OKRs, they go through some kind of challenges while making the shift from the traditional approach to the OKR approach. So there are three phases that I'm looking at challenges. One is making the shift to OKRs, and second is maintaining 100% coverage. So something that we really hear about from different organizations, or for us also within the organization, what we've seen is nudging people every time to maintain that OKR cycle, write it at the right time, and then follow the OKR check-ins, and then complete the showcase at the end of the quarter, and so on and so forth. So maintaining 100% coverage. And the third challenge is think of the outcome and not tasks and activities while writing. In fact, some of the line managers talk about this very frequently with us, that, how do we think about outcome and not tasks and activities, and how do we coach people to write OKRs thinking of the outcome instead of tasks or activities. So maybe we can we can give one challenge to each one of you on the panel here. So making the shift to OKRs. Kevin, would you like to take that up, because Vidya was also sure that you'd give us the best answer for that.
Well, we have an entire webinar on this that's an hour long. It's common, traps and landmines, how to recognize them and how to avoid them. So if you're asking me to pick one, that's going to be tough. But we actually have an acronym that we call STICK. How do you make OKRs stick? And let me just tell you what that is. You need to, S stands for set the foundation correctly. And that means make sure that you have a firm strategic stake stuck in the ground first before you start building the OKR, because the mistake that we see is, a very conscientious CEO will read John Doerr's book or Paul Niven's book, and they'll think, oh my gosh, this is the cat's meow. Everybody start creating OKR. And you basically carpet bomb the organization with OKR, and there's no strategic alignment. So that's a common mistake that we see. So you need to set the foundation correctly first. The T stands for take the time to do it right. Organizations constantly get into a hurry with OKR because, here again, they read the book and they want to do this now. And there is a process and a methodology that you should follow. You should crawl, walk, run when it comes to OKR. People will read John Doerr's book and they'll, read about that Intel story where they truly turn the company around. And that CEO will say, everybody start creating stretch OKR. And everybody's going to fail because you don't have the foundation in place and you're not taking the time to do it right. The I stands for involve all of your people. This is an agile concept. This isn't a hierarchical top-down push. The C we've already discussed, which is you have to have champion and a chief executive support. And then the K stands for keep up the momentum, because your OKR journey is only as good as the tools and resources and disciplines and habits that you put in place to undergird it and to support it. So I could go on all day long with the common challenges in OKR, and you've already named several, tasks and activities masquerading as key results, and et cetera. In fact, Mercy, that might be a great webinar for one of your future group gatherings, is to kind of do a deep dive into the common mistakes. So Vidya, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll probably cover the last point that Kevin mentioned is on keeping the momentum. And this is truly one of the traps and landmines that teams could get into if they don't keep up the momentum. So just think about the old way of setting goals, where most often not, you would set the goals, put it up somewhere, and then it's forgotten and probably reviewed mid-year or quarterly or at the end of the year. But in OKRs, it's, as Kevin rightly mentioned, it's borrowed from Agile. So teams come together same day, same time, each week to report progress against their outcome metrics. So you're building the muscle, so it becomes muscle memory after a certain point of time. So just to visualize whether your organizations are big or small, every week, same day, same time, teams are coming together, reporting progress on outcome metrics so that they keep the culture of OKRs going. So keeping the momentum is probably one of the most important, and set and forget, as it's definitely not a set and forget. But by not doing that, that can become a trap or a landmine. So that's probably my response to this, Mercy.
Sure. Vidya, would you also like to touch upon how do you coach people to think of the outcome and not tasks, activities while writing the OKRs?
Yeah, so we have a very simple test called the so what test. So we ask them, okay, so what? What if you do this? What happens? So there'll be somebody from marketing who comes up and says, okay, I'm going to run Google ad campaigns and I'm going to write 5 blogs. So the question is, so what? What's the outcome? So that question makes people think, because in OKRs, it's also about interlacing coach-led questions. So it's very exploratory when we coach teams. So when we ask a so what questions, then the most often than not, teams try to think about the actual outcome of it and what's the business metric that they're trying to impact. The other way to look at it is tasks is something which is repetitive, something that could be completed maybe in a few hours. But if you want to improve a measure over, let's say, 90 days, so let's say in this cohort, you want to improve, let's say, the representation of certain countries over others, then that's probably a metric that you want to move the needle on in the quarter, considering that that's something that you want to focus your energy on. So that's the difference between a task and an outcome metric. So the simple question is, so what? So just ask your team, so what? and then the answers will come out.
Sure. So we're going to ask so what from the next week onwards, Vidya, in our organization. All
Absolutely.
right. Sure. So Naveen, would you like to talk about maintaining 100% coverage? So I'm pretty sure you might have faced that challenge as well, and it is something that we have definitely faced, and we are finding different ways to handle that challenge. So what would you talk about maintaining 100% challenge coverage, Naveen?
Yeah, so I think one of the good things that I've seen is that the entire review within the organization has moved into OKRs. Right, so the weekly review that any team does, it is on the OKRs. So I think that leads into a lot of adoption to it. Teams have to do it. I think Vidya also kind of touched upon it, saying that there is a rhythm to it, right? So for me, Monday morning when I get up, I know it's an OKR review, and in that review, it's not about looking at only the metrics part of it, but it is about looking at your confidence level of are you going to achieve, what is the support that you require, right? So it is not just about a review, but it's more about how that review is helping you to achieve things, right? So I think everyone looks forward to that conversation. So I think one is how do you look at reviews. Second is, I think what we started doing is publishing OKR results across, right? So we have a cycle where what we're saying is that every bi-weekly there's a dashboard that comes up which kind of shows right across the organization where are leaders on it. So I think these are the two things that I've seen, which is helping, on that adoption, that coverage. And then there's a lot of conversations, on this, right? So, we as HR teams also, when we look at recognition, we are looking at, individuals or teams, right, which were able to achieve OKR. So I think that's how the recall value also comes in. So these are a few things maybe that we're looking at from a coverage standpoint.
Sure. Thanks, Naveen. So my next question is here. Are OKRs suitable for organizations of any size? How different are the challenges and what's the best way to approach them? So, once when we were talking to our HR colleagues, one simple question that people ask is, it suits your organization maybe because the employee strength is 700 plus or 1000 plus. But then what about organizations who have 6,000, 7,000, or even more than 50,000 employees? So what is your answer to that, Kevin? Are OKRs suitable for organizations of any size? And if yes, how different are the challenges and what's the best way to approach them?
Well, my answer is that I think OKR is suited to any organization of any size. In fact, next week I'm onboarding a client that has 40,000 employees globally, Fortune 100 company. Week after that, I'm onboarding a company based in New York City that's got 14 employees. Now, it's slightly different the way that we will recommend that they implement OKR at those two different scales, but the framework, I think, is perfectly aligned for any size organization. The challenges with implementing it increase with the size. I mean, that seems intuitive and it's true. The larger the organization is, the more tricky and the more challenging it becomes to truly socialize this thing and make it organization-wide. Because remember, this is culture change. And so this is one of the reasons why messaging is so important, because that CEO message that we discussed, that's going to be socialized throughout the entire organization. So we recommend that when you launch an OKR initiative, that you go through our first, what we call level set training. Vidya does this all the time. I do it almost every single day. This is the foundational training to make sure everybody is on the same page and their understanding is the same when it comes to how we recommend that you understand and implement OKR, all the way down to the language you use, tools, rules, and formulas. And we recommend that you record that and then you put that onto whatever your intranet is and that you have every single employee watch it. So for example, the organization I'm working with next week, all 40,000 employees are going to be touched with that training within the next month. Now, it might take a year before we actually get to them and they start building OKR, because remember the acronym T stands for take the time to do it right. You don't want to take an organization of 40,000 people and just say, everybody start creating OKR. There has to be a process, and we're very methodical in the way that we recommend that you do that. So the larger the organization is, the more tricky it becomes, but we have ways that we can work with them to implement it so that over time you socialize this throughout the entire enterprise. Look at our website. I mean, you can see some of the brands that we worked with. Some of the companies we worked with are global Fortune 50, 50,000 employees across the world companies. And it just takes time to make sure that you do it right. Google, by the way, 80,000 employees. If you were to parachute into Google today and say, hey, talk to us about your OKR initiative, they'd look at you funny and say, initiative, that's just the way we do business. All right. So they've socialized it so thoroughly throughout the organization. There's ways that you can reinforce that and do that, but it takes time.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. So in the book, Measure What Matters, John Doerr talks a lot about CFRs. So Vidya, can you shed some light on CFRs for continuous performance management? Because it's commonly referred to as a sibling for OKR. So can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So, when you're actually implementing OKRs, CFRs becomes very akin to check-in meetings, because what we also find is people have limited time and bandwidth, but they want to complete everything as part of their day jobs and not have something additional to their to-do list. So one of the practices that we see very, very frenetically picking up is during a check-in meeting, take that time to appreciate somebody who has lent that help and support. So the actual CFRs, the sharing of feedback, the conversations and the recognition happens in the context of check-in meetings, and we find that pretty impactful. You also have practices like Friday wins, which is of course mentioned in the book. You could do that as well. It's a good practice because again, it brings memorability. But from a practitioner standpoint, we've seen that we just combine it into a setting that they're most comfortable with, which is the check-in meetings, because they're meeting every week.
Yes. Thank you, Vidya. So the next question is around using OKRs for an individual's career advantage. So not just career advantage, if you could also talk about using OKRs outside of business context, because we also hear that OKRs is not just useful for organization, but it can also be used for accomplishing personal goals. So I'm opening it up for anybody. So would you like to take that up, please?
Yeah, so I use OKRs all the time in my personal life as well, because again, it's a framework, very, very permeable, whether it's professional or personal. So let's say weight loss, for instance, and that's something which is always there on our minds, especially as New Year resolutions. But the New Year resolutions just remain something which probably I put on a post-it and, somewhere hidden somewhere. So when I write OKRs, I actually write key results and say, movement of the needle from X to Y. Interestingly, also came across somebody who was using OKRs in their marital lives. So you can find different use cases of it in your personal lives as well.
All right. Thank you, Vidya. So Naveen, we can take the last question for you, at least from my side, and then we can open it up for our audience. And I'm pretty sure they have a lot of questions that they'd like to ask all three of you all. So my last question is something that actually one of our participant asked. In fact, when we had sent out the information about this event happening, we got this question about driving OKRs and performance management in a virtual environment, something that we're living with today, right? So what are the challenges that you're seeing and how is it really happening in your organization, Naveen?
So for me, I think I don't see a challenge because of COVID. I think we are happy that we have OKRs now in the COVID days. Let me just try to give some examples there, right? I'm sure that, right, many of us who's in this webinar today can relate with it, that teams that has gone agile, right? When I'm talking to business leaders, right, they don't see, impact at all, right? I think productivity is still high. There is a visibility on, what's really happening. The teams are self-organized, so, they're working together. And, that led me to thinking that OKRs is also like an agile environment, right? So what I mean by that is, the prioritization happens, right? So the backlogs that we have in the agile, for me, when you look at OKRs, when you're creating objectives, prioritization is happening, right? Then you are creating sprints. For me, the sprints is, your quarterly is what the sprint is. But then when we're, bringing in the review mechanisms, weekly sprints is what it is, right? So there is people coming up. It's like it's stand-up, where I think Vidya rightly called out CFR, right? So for me, stand-up is CFR, where you're talking about, hey, what's happening? What is the roadblocks? What do we need to do move forward? So, from an agile standpoint, your stand-ups are also happening through CFRs, right? Then it is about, how is it that we're releasing things on time, right? And we're taking feedback from that. which is what we're doing on a quarterly basis, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that OKRs has actually become an enabler in the COVID times, for us to really look at it, and it is helping us actually. So that's my view to it. I would like to stop it there.
Thank you, Naveen. You so rightfully said that, and I think that's really a perfect answer for it. All right, so I'm opening it up for our audiences here, and I'm going to read out some questions that's on our chat, and I'm opening it up for anybody on the panel to answer it. So the first question here is from Chandrika. She asks, please mention best OKR software in India.
So I can answer that on the line. So I think Captain Anil was very kind enough, as a customer also to place that. So you could look at the Fitbot's website. So I'm happy to answer that question on a lighter note.
Sure. Thank you, Vidya. So second one is from Rupande. She asks, is organization size relevant in application of this framework? I think we touched upon it already, but if there is anything more that you want to add to it.
I think we discussed that pretty thoroughly. I think any size organization, I think is well suited to OKR. Like I mentioned, it's different the way that you're going to implement it in a smaller organization than a larger one. But the power of the framework, I think, is universal.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. The next one is here. I'm just going to read that out completely. So this is my understanding. If organization want to build new capabilities, service offering, example, reduce resolution time from 3 minutes to 30 seconds, go for OKR. However, if it's incremental, repetitive in nature, go for the defined, streamlined KPI, balanced scorecard approach. Please comment. Hence, organization may choose to adapt based on context. So this is from Goda Verma.
So there was a lot there. I'm trying to find where that comment is so that I can kind of unpack it, because I heard a mention of the balanced scorecard, I heard a mention of KPI, and I heard a mention of OKR, and an example of, by the way, a really good key result, which is to reduce resolution time 3 to 30 seconds. That's a very technically sound key result. So it says, however, if it's incremental, repetitive in nature, go for the defined streamlined KPI, balanced scorecard. Okay, so let me see if I can try to unpack this. So remember that webinar I told you that we have that's designed around the common OKR traps and challenges, how to recognize them, how to avoid them. One of the common mistakes that we see, especially in organizations that are heavily KPI driven, is that when an organization implements OKR, there's a temptation to grab whatever those key performance indicators you already have in place and to crosswalk them into your OKR and call them key results. And that's not really what OKR is about. So a key performance indicator is data that you look at daily and weekly in order to make management decisions. So let's say you're in charge of a call center. You probably every single day look at average or median call wait time. And you want that to be within a range, say 30 seconds or less. I'm just making this up, right? So that's KPI. And you look at that daily in order to make management decisions, because if you see that you've got peak hours where the call wait time goes up, you could do peak staffing in order to keep that in the green. So there's what we call a dance between OKR and KPI. And the dance is when you have a KPI that is consistently in the red, day after day, week after week, something is broke. And so that's where an OKR would come into play, because an OKR would be built in order to bring the KPI back into the green. So think of your KPIs as lagging indicators and think of your OKR as really leading indicators. So I had one client say, and I love it, my OKRs is how I transform the organization and my KPIs are how I manage it. So there's a difference. And this, we really don't have enough time to kind of do a deep dive into the difference between our data sets, health metrics, KPI, and OKR, but there is a difference. And there's a dance out there between them. So did that help with the question?
Kevin, for me, yes. I hope the one who asked also, feels that it was answered, is what I'm going to think. And let's move on. So here's a question from Smita S. Can you please expand CFR? So CFR stands for Conversations, Feedback, and Recognition, Smita. And so from Shrikant Nair to everyone, how do we bring in a purpose-driven culture in an organization through OKRs?
So The way I've read the question, the way we've experienced it is that actually OKR stems from purpose. So when there is a purpose in the organization, that's the starting point. That leads to the mission, vision, strategy, and then OKRs, because it's a strategy execution framework. So when you look at OKRs driving organizational purpose, maybe it's the other way around. But when you're implementing it amongst teams, when you're setting team OKRs, one of the ways in which you can establish purpose is to actually ask that question, what's the team's purpose? And that's a very powerful question we have seen, is because when teams start thinking about, why do they exist and what do they actually do in the organization? So you could probably try that out at a team level, but at the organization level, it actually stems from company purpose. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, Vidya. So there's this question from Ritu, and Vidya, I think you've already answered it, but maybe in case if participant wants to hear from you again. So I'm just going to read it out. How much time generally can take for teams to understand how the OKR methodology and the best practices work?
I'll go back to Kevin's point on this, and Kevin can add in because and Naveen has the actual experience of implementing in Subex. So when we work with startups, it's fairly easier because the number of team members is lesser to understand craft and then start implementing OKRs. So the 2 weeks I'm actually talking about smaller startups to just learn and write. Managing OKRs is a constant process. So it's a journey, through the year and next year, etc. But they're happening weekly. Larger organizations, our experience has been, let's say you've got about 500 members going through a pilot. It does take time because they're learning and then they're writing, then they're coaching others, and you would soon start, some get it faster than others. So it takes time. So I would think about 30 to 45 days, again, depending upon the number of people you're taking through the process. That's been my experience. And most often and not, teams are new to OKR, so they do need to take time.
And if I could piggyback onto that real quick, remember with OKR that you're building a muscle, and it takes time to build that muscle. And so we have all kinds of tools and resources that we use to help you as you build that muscle. But it takes, no matter what size the organization, at least 2, maybe sometimes 3 quarters before everybody really kind of gets it, before we've built these structures and habits, routines, and rituals that helps to really undergird the OKR journey. And this is why the K in our acronym, which stands for keep up the momentum, is so important, because what we've discovered, there's a whole lot of energy and buzz around OKR when you're initially implementing it, because it's coming straight from that corner office and that C-suite level of offices, right? And there's a lot of buzz around it. But then once you create them, there's a natural tendency to just basically go back to your day job, and we call that set and forget. And so we've got to make sure that we are really rewiring the organization so that OKR becomes a part of the daily, weekly management conversation. And that's what we call the meeting pulse, so that you're constantly basically living those OKR. And it takes time to build that muscle. Remember, this is culture change. So I would say, in answer to that question, before the teams really start living OKR, you need to be at this and be persistent, consistent with it for a few quarters. Then I would say by year 2, it just becomes the way you do business. I bet Naveen could throw something in on that, because he's actually been living this.
Yeah. So I think, I think one area where it's taking time for us is on crafting of the OKRs. So I think our, the senior leadership level leaders have figured it out, but when it comes to the team level OKRs, right? I think that's where our biggest struggle is. And I think it's a continuous process, especially, right? I think we touched upon that outcome versus tasks. I think that's where the, the biggest challenge is. And I think we've improved quite a bit, but crafting of OKRs, it'll take time. But the methodology, what it is, I think from a framework perspective, it's simple and easy to understand.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions from the participants, and we have a couple of more minutes left on the session. So maybe if I could ask another question, in case if in the meanwhile, if any participant also wants to add in. So how much time does it really take for an organization to make OKRs part of their culture, to really talk in the Google language, like just understand and think of it like that's the way we do business. Now it really is like an initiative, right? And people in the initial phases find it challenging to craft it in order to write it correctly and then really follow through it and so on and so forth. So in your experience, how long does an organization take in order to make that part of their culture?
So I don't have a time frame to it, because the more you give to OKRs, the more you get. The more it becomes part of communication, the more reinforcement happens. So it's a very constant process. I have come across some organizations where they've picked it up and then they felt that, okay, we're not able to do this, but maybe it's not culturally right for them. But organizations who have sustained it, which is most often not have seen those who pick it up to sustain it, it's a constant journey. The more you give, the more you get from OKRs. That's probably the summary to it.
Okay, so we have next question from Mr. Chandrasekhar. What is agility concerned to new technology in this pandemic? Okay, that's completely out of the OKR topic, but then, if any of you want to take it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that's not my wheelhouse, but too bad Kashi's not here. I bet he would have an opinion on that. Vidya and I have a colleague who I know has an opinion on that, and maybe we could connect them, Vidya, so that they could have a conversation around that, because that's not really my wheelhouse. What about you guys, Naveen or Vidya?
I think when I read the question, I read it as picking up new tools. That's how I read it. Agility concern in technology. I think if tools are intuitive, then teams pick it up. So I've not faced this as a challenge in the averseness to tools, especially when teams are very remote, because today I think Zoom and MS Teams actually rule our days. So I'm not too sure, but happy to answer it offline if you could clarify that.
Sure. Thank you, Vidya. So since we have a couple of more minutes left in the meeting, is there any participant who want to ask a direct question to any of our panel? Maybe if you can raise your hands, then, Avinash, is it possible for us to unmute the participant and allow them to ask a direct question to our panel?
Yes, we can. They'll just have to, I guess, put it in the chat and then we can ask them to unmute themselves.
Sure. Thank you, Pallavi.
Well, hey, Mercy, in the meantime, let me make a suggestion. So if there's some interest in OKR out there, we recently published what's called the ABCs of Okrs. It's a pamphlet that you can download for free on our website. Just go to okrstraining.com. And it's easily, what do you think, Vidya? Maybe an hour and a half read. And highly recommend that you give that a look. Because it will give you a deeper dive and kind of a rich understanding of OKR and how we recommend that you implement OKR. And it's called the ABCs of OKR. So I would encourage you guys to take a look at that if you've got more interest. In fact, Vidya, is that on the Fitbot's website as well?
Yeah, there is. So there's an ABC guide to OKRs, and it's a very quick read. At the same time, I think you could take the time to actually use it to implement it in your organizations.
Yeah, so you can grab it off of Vidya's website as well.
Okay. Thank you, Vidya, Naveen, and Kevin. I don't think we have any more.
See, one sec. Kevin, if
Yes,
you could just type out the website. I think people have not got the entire website.
I have it with me. If you want, I could paste it.
Type it out, Mercy, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
just put a Fitbot. Oh, hey, I do see a question here that we didn't talk about that we probably should if we've got a minute, Mercy. It's about tying pay to OKR.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Kevin. We have enough time, actually.
So I want you to know that we do not recommend that. And we don't recommend it for a whole host of reasons. If the second that you tie pay to your OKR is when those managers start dialing back on the ambition that they build into them. I mean, that's just human psychology. If your annual bonus is tied to your ability to nail that OKR, you're going to write it in such a way that you nail it. That's just human psychology. So we don't recommend that you tie pay to OKR. Now, there is a an exception. And where we see an exception out there is generally in sales teams. Sales teams are already really wired that their pay is directly tied to their performance. And so it seems to work and make sense for sales teams to tie OKR to pay and performance, but otherwise we don't recommend that you do. And we even talk about that a little bit in the ABCs of OKRs. Okay. What else?
I think that's all, Kevin. Thank you very much. Thanks, Naveen, Vidya, once again, Kevin, for joining us today and talking with us. OKR is actually a very interesting topic and a prominent one these days. And, I personally love OKRs. It's my favorite framework, and I've already started using it even for my personal accomplishments and not just at Odessa where I currently work. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm 100% sure that all our participants would have also gained valuable insights out of this conversation. So I wanted to take this time to thank each one of you for joining us, taking the time and being with us today, despite the hard times that we're going through. We truly appreciate it, and thanks for the valuable insights once again that you shared. And for everyone here and the participants, we want to acknowledge that it's really tough times that we're all going through across the world, and especially here in India, but you've still taken the time and you've joined us in this session so that you could gain some insights. It really is great of you, and we are thankful that you joined the session, and I really hope that you are taking away some good takeaways from this session. So thank you once again for joining us. Our heart goes out to each one of you. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and join the Nhrd community if possible, and in the future also look up to our social media channels for the upcoming events and participate in them as and when you like. So thank you once again, everybody. Have a great evening and good night to you.
Great job, Mercy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Naveen, Vidya, Pallavi, and Avinash, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Mercy.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.